Hey up everybody and welcome back. Well, as I said at the end of the last one, today we're going to start on dismantling the clutch and taking the flywheel off to get us down to the bare crank. And then we'll look at that blast piston and see if we can clean up the barrels and do some measurements and things like that. First thing though is we're going to look at the camshaft. I'll bring you in close to show you, but I've sort of cleaned the rust off it, and most of it is, certainly three of the cam profiles are really badly fitted, as you'll see. So let me bring you in and I'll show you these and we'll get started for this week. Well, starting at this end, you can see we've got some rust on there, same on this one. That one, funnily enough, look, virtually none, tiny little bit there. But then we get down to this end and look at the state of that. Again, this one has just got some, but then that one, the last two, are just really deeply pitted. Now, I don't know, I will have to talk to people who know. I don't know if I can find another camshaft. Maybe Matthew has sort of spare camshafts from engines that have been scrapped. Or I don't know if these can be sort of cleaned up, metal sprayed, reground to the profile. And actually, I don't know if you can see there, it's a really sharp profile. I mean, there's sort of no quietening ramps on this. It just goes wallop and back down again. But anyway, whether these can be reformed, whether it's worthwhile, I don't know. Something I've got to look into. So that's the camshaft. Let's now get on with the clutch. Now, before we actually start dismantling it, here's the page from the parts book. So as you can see, it's actually a multi-plate clutch, which surprised me. You know, I was assuming it was going to be like a car clutch with one friction plate and that was be it, but no. And there's a spring, doesn't tell you how many's in there, but it does tell you they're 10 cents each in whatever it was, 1920 something. We got a thrust bearing here with races, some odd balls there. Well, there's a couple of thrust bearings actually. Center. Anyway, let's take some nuts and bolts off, and hopefully it won't just go piang and pieces will disappear everywhere. So let's have a look at this thing. Well, first thing, the flywheel is bolted onto the center behind this cover. So we're going to have to take the clutch off. I can't take the flywheel off, or it doesn't seem to be as if I can, and work on the clutch sort of on the bench flat. It looks as if I'm going to have to take the clutch off first before I can get at the bolts to take the flywheel off. So when I pull this out a little, I can see in behind this, oh, that'll come off. I thought that was part and parcel of it. Let's have a look. Oi, don't roll about. I stick something there so it won't roll away. Okay, there's our first thrust bearing. Let's see if that comes out on its own. Couple of hooky things. Yep, that'll come out. Okay, so there's that. Yeah, that's an actual ball race, so that will go in there. Looks as if the rear race comes out as well. I need another little hooky thing, which of course I don't seem to have. Where that's gone. I suppose it might fall out if I... Hang on. Might lose you for a minute here, but... Yeah. So that's just come out like that. There's the other race with a shim behind it. So we'll keep them in order to one side. Okay, now these screws which hold this outer plate on, which when I look in here I can see the springs bear onto this plate. It's got slotted screws and they've all got little punch marks next to them to lock them in, which is great. So let me see if I can start to get these loosened. What I might have to do is use an impact driver on them, because there's no way I'll be at it forever if I tried to sort of drill out all of these. Everyone's been, this one's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. So whether they've been out 5 times from the original time and been sort of popped every time they've been put back in, I don't know. So let me have a little go at these screws. Well, there's no way these are going to come out with a ordinary screwdriver. So we're going to try the old impact one. Oh, yet again, this thing amazes me at how easily things screw out. Yep. Doesn't say much for the pop marks, does it? There's some rust down here though. That's just muck. Okay. Yep. Fingers crossed, everybody, although usually of course it's the last one. Come back to that one. I'll put it to the top to come when we come back to it. Oh, come on, don't roll about. This is just a reworked screwdriver head, so I'm glad they're moving, because it's not a brilliant implement. Okay. Oh yeah. Bugger. Let me just see, look. Right, as I say, there's always one, which is come on now. Oh, I think that might have... Did that move? Yes! Alright, now then, what I'm going to do is get a couple of G clamps, which actually they're called C clamps here. I'll put them on so they'll hold against the springs. So, put me a couple of clamps on to hold the spring pressure. Got myself a little box, put the bits in. There's that first bearing with it all in order. I'm glad to see that I've got a few people, actually had another flurry of subscribers, but I've got a couple of people watching this video. I guess there's not that many on Henderson's who've thought didn't they all start? You were watching. Let's try this one again. What was I saying? Oh yeah, got a couple of people watching who have experience of these older 4-cylinder American engines, and they've been very kind in giving me some insight, which is always nice. I mean, to be honest, I like that. What I don't like is the people who phone up, or don't phone up, people who put comments in and say, you know, oh, I'm an expert, you're making a complete balls up of this. I know I'm not an expert, so it's nice when the people who are actually well mannered enough to just say, here, you know you're doing this wrong, or, oh God, this thing is so, I suppose I should have cleaned it before I started doing this. Anyway, I'm rambling again. Let's get these out. Yeah, I suppose I could just clean off the top of this, couldn't I, before I go any further. Let's get this out. Otherwise, every time I put my hand on it, I'm going to get dirty again, aren't I? So stay with me. There. What's all this grease stuff do? Well, it's just at the bottom. I guess it was the flywheel was at the bottom. This was in the remains of the oil, because also it's rusted down here where when the oil was gone, the water was there. All right, let's just loosen this steadily. There we go. So that comes off, and you can see here, these are just riveted over. So we've got some distance pieces, and there's our springs, our 10-cent springs. Now then, oh, and then when that's off, these spring cups actually go through holes in the back. That's what I'm pushing with my finger. I was wondering what they were. I gave them a push and there's that, and there's all our clutch plates. So let's take these off, keep them in order. Wait a minute. These are all just plain steel. There's no friction material on them. We put them down, I can still keep them in order. And then there's that other bearing. Oh, come on. Da, da, da. And this one's got shims behind it as well. I'll have to ask Matthew about that. Does it have to be shimmed up for end float or something? Excuse me reaching across you. Alright, that's all the shims out. Now then, they are what hold the flywheel onto the crankshaft. So let me move this stuff away and mark it up and what have you, so I know what it is, and then we'll see about taking them out. These are the nuts on the back of the flywheel, and as you can see, as with every other nut in the engine, they've got split pins in. So let me take the pins out and then we'll see if we can get those bolts out. I've taken all the split pins out. These are 9/16 nuts. This is going to be really hard to get hold of, so I think what I'm going to do is take this over and hold the flywheel in the vise. So let's go over the other side of the workshop. Well, I'll put it in the vise, you can see, and I swivel the vise around. Actually, I don't normally like swivel base vices, but we'll see how much we can get you to see on this one. You can see, look, I'm using a hammer, not my hand. Oh! Well, typical. That one's turning on the other side. Got a lock washer. I had a comment about lock washers from someone, and I must admit he gave a link for me to go and look at something which I haven't looked at. Basically he was saying that lock washers don't work and are on the contrary more likely to allow nuts to work loose. So I should go and look at the link to see what's what. But you know, seeing as engineers and people have been using lock washers all this time, I would have thought they'd have known if they didn't work. But anyway. Oh! What I must buy myself, and you don't see them here, and yet all of my ring spanners at home were like that, is the sort of ring spanner with like a swan neck at the end, so the ring goes right down. I have seen them, but they're not the norm here. See, this is the perfect place for that. I could get a ring spanner onto there, and whereas with an ordinary one with just a little offset, because I've got a feeling it's going to be difficult. Oh, I know what I can do. I can use maybe use one of those swivelly things, because I'm not going to be able to get in to either of those three. Hold on a second. So what do you all do with yourselves when I walk off to get something because I've forgotten it? Twiddle your thumbs? Think, oh, what a prat, he's forgotten something again. It's just too big to get in, and it definitely won't go in there. I'm going away again. Yeah, I'm getting a little bit of an angle, but one of those ones where it comes down like that would be really nice. I've got to buy some of them, but then I've got to buy some of those with the built-in ratchet thing, and I've got to buy this. We shall see. Oh, I sold the Indian, by the way. A chap in Canada bought it. So now I can afford to get my rotary phase converter. Because I don't know if I told you I use static phase converters on the lathe and the mill. And although the mill seems to work fine, I can't use the 2 top speeds on the lathe. The screw heads on the other side are countersunk, so I guess that is almost acting like a little taper and holding them. Ooby-dooby-doo-boo. I was just going to say they all turn, and then that one didn't. Come back to the one that wouldn't turn. That still doesn't want to. Let's see if we can pop these out. Well, they're not countersunk. They're like that. See, what I don't want to do here is have that just fall off. So, pity I haven't got something I can stand it on. I don't think I have. Let's take the bottom ones out, I think. Hey! I wonder if that will actually... No. think it's probably that one I can't turn that's holding this. So let's work our way around to that one. Here we go. Ta-da! All right, one flywheel and one crank. Now I still have to get that off the end of there, and it's rusty, so we'll see about getting that off. Okay, what's next? Well, let me go and put all these pieces together so I don't misplace anything, and then we should see about getting that gear off the end of the crank. Now I came out to the workshop to get something, and as I was walking past this, since I've been squirting it every day, I thought I'd give it a quick go, and it went tink tink, and when I look I don't see any cracks in the piston, so maybe it's starting to move. See, that's a different sound. I'll probably speed this bit of film up. Ta-da! Now that was really strange because it was just like number 2-cylinder. Once it started to move, it went really easily until it got to that last little bit where the rings are up in this top here, and then it didn't want to come out. I really had to push it, and I cleaned all the rust out. So anyway, the other thing that might have helped get it out was I did my Popeye impression. What do you think of this? Da-doing, da-doing. I don't even know how I did that. It's a ruptured bicep. Got out the shower one day, Linda said to me, "What's that?" And when I looked, all my arm was purple and there was this big lump. Alright, so that's that out. Now we can get back to that crankshaft. Just realised I haven't got my hat on. As you can see, I've got the cases back. I've got a couple of things to show you and to talk about, and that's sort of going to be it for this week. But one of the things I wanted to mention, this is, as I say, further on. So I've been looking at all the comments, and we've got a lot of comments about the barrels. So I just wanted to spend a minute, won't bore you, but the barrels are a perfect example that there are lots of ways to do that. You know, I had people mention evaporust, which I do use. They mentioned heat, and I did say in the video that certainly the 2nd cylinder and maybe the 4th one, I did heat them up. That didn't seem to do any good. So basically it just came down to this was the way I chose to do it. So maybe another time we'll do it a different way and film that so you can see it. But the one thing I definitely shouldn't have done, as a couple of people mentioned, was bead blast the rust off underneath the piston. I'm pretty sure, as you'll notice with the way the last one came off, the idea I had to do it did work. So I got a feeling I just jammed that piston in with glass bead. So there you go, mea culpa. Or as the youth of today would say, certainly here in the US, I don't know if they say it in the UK, my bad. What in God's name does that mean? Anyway, that's beside the point. So as I say, the other thing about that was, I mean, the comments were great. People came up with all sorts of different ways of doing it. I must admit the only one I didn't fancy was the grease. May well work, I don't know. Other people have used it and it has worked. But I just at the back of my mind was thinking, oh, if I don't get the piston out, I'm left with a quart of grease inside this thing. So anyway, as I say, thanks for the comments. I just chose to do it that way, and if I hadn't have made a balls up of the one with the glass bead, I think they would have all pulled out. So anyway, let me get on and show you some things here. Now I'm going to zoom you in and out a couple of times here so I can show you things. I've had comments from, and you'll excuse my disembodied voice, from Steve Marks and Gary Sweetland, both of whom really know these engines. And I got a lot of very useful information, so much so actually that I printed it out, so I didn't print it. Well, the first thing is the mystery of the screws is solved. They were to hold in baffles. Two of these baffles, which go in the bottom. You can see they've got cutouts for, I think it's for the conrods he mentions. So that's it. It wasn't just an aberration. So I'm going to either have to find a couple of baffles, or who knows, if I can get a better picture or some dimensions from someone, we can soon make a couple of those. Interesting thing here, look, the gasket's actually in pieces, 3 different pieces. There you go. All right, so thanks very much, Steve and Gary. This is really helpful. So, apart from mentioning the baffles, it was also mentioned that this thing here, the bevel drive, should not have just slid out. That should basically be a press fit, and in fact you put shims behind it to shim it out this way, and then those screwed bushings at the end were to allow you to move this cross shaft so that you could get the fit up here exactly right. So we've got to look into that. But one thing, these 4 keys are in really bad condition. So I don't know, perhaps you could mention it in another comment. When you mention that this is a press fit, is that on the shaft itself, or I've got a feeling with 4 new keys in here, this would be a much tighter fit. So you can let me know on that. Should I bring you in there to show you those keys? Yeah, that looks awful, doesn't it? You're a long way away. Bear with me here. Alright, those 4 keys, I don't know how closely you can see it there, but they're all badly worn, they're misshapen, so we'll see about that. Okay, next thing I found, after David cleaned these up, was that, well, we're going to lose the light here. Hold on a second. See the shiny bit and the shiny bit? That's actually a gouge. And I don't know if you'll see it on this side, but they're actually, there's a bump. There are 4 bumps. One here, one there, and one back here. So something was really pounding on the inside of that. Now what else? Oh yes, the most interesting thing of all that we found when we took these apart and cleaned them. Now again, I don't know how well this is going to show up. I may have to refilm this when I look at the bit of video. Let's see. Does that show up at all? There is someone's initial here, and then scratched in the case it says 1933 Feb. So at some point somebody had this apart. We think the engine was at what, 26, 27, so after 6 or 7 years it was taken apart. Oh yeah, also the pistons are definitely wrong. Who was it? I think it was, yes, Steve mentioned that the pistons were the wrong pistons, and those spaces at the bottom were for probably because the piston height was wrong. So what else is there? That's about it. Hold on a second again. Oh, let me get into frame. So I don't want to keep talking in a disembodied manner. So I hope all that showed up reasonably well on the videos. Again, thanks for all that information. So that's going to be it for this week. The barrels are actually away being cleaned at Dave's. I started to clean them off and they were a bit grungy, so I've just got in cleaning the grunge off in the machine, and then I'll set to and clean them up, and we're going to be repairing some of the broken fins next time. Now I don't know how long all that'll take, so I'm also just been fiddling on with the topper, so probably the next video will be with the topper. Can't think of anything else for this at the moment, so until next time, enjoy yourselves.